Hi everybody, it's John back with another model inbox review. Today we're looking at this as a subject. This is the Panzer Kampfwagen 2 Aus F. Yeah, it's a Panzer 2F. The kit is actually the second addition to my Panzer project, which is to build the Panzer 1s to 7s. And I did an inbox review recently with the Panzer 1 from Hobby Boss, and today we're looking at the Tamiya Kit Panzer 2 in 35th scale. We'll start off with the boxing history like I normally do. The Tamiya Kit was actually first released in 1971 in this particular guise. And the thing that's interesting about the Tamiya Kit is that from 1971, when the kit was released, they've never changed the artwork or the type of box style whatsoever, and you can still get this kit in this style of box on the shelves in your local model shop today. I think I actually bought this kit in my local model shop last year, I think, and I think I paid about $9.99. It wasn't that expensive, so even a brand new model, it's still quite an inexpensive kit. So that's the 1971 edition. The kit comes complete with 5 figures. One of them's a tank commander and the other 4 infantry support. But the kit comes in 2 distinct different types. There's this one with the infantry support set, and there's this one, which doesn't come with the infantry support, but it does come with a commander figure who sits in the cupola there at the top. But it also has a motorised unit which fits inside the tank's hull and motorises the tank for you, which is quite interesting. This particular kit is actually getting a bit more difficult to get hold of now. It's getting quite rare, but the release date was 1972, but you can still get it here and there, and sometimes you can get it cheap, but usually it's a little bit pricey because it's quite rare. Now, the inbox reviewers and professional model builders I've had a love-hate relationship with the Tamiya Panzer II, because though they sort of like the Tamiya Panzer II, they don't like the fact that it took Tamiya an awful long time to update this kit, and that's what's interesting about this kit. The Aus F and G is the late variant Panzer II, and this kit is actually it's quite a basic model. There's not an awful lot going on with it. There's not many parts to the kit. There's no interior detail whatsoever, and the only thing that actually has any detail to the kit whatsoever is the actual figures themselves. They're quite detailed, but the kit itself is actually quite basic until, or rather, it took Tamiya from 1972 until 2008 to update the model. The original kit had vulcanised rubber one-piece tracks, but the new kit, which was released in 2008, which is incidentally of the early versions of the Panzer II, the Aus A, B and C, this particular model doesn't have the figurines, infantry support, and it's from the French campaign. But this particular kit has photo etch parts and length and link tracks, which give the kit an awful lot more realism. There's also, I believe, an additional sprue, which has lots of additional parts inside it. I think there's interior detail to the gun mechanism, machine gun and breech mechanisms, and there's some other detail here and there to the interior, and separate hatches, which are quite interesting as well. I probably have them in the open or closed position. So that's the 2008 edition, which is the updated early variants of the Panzer II, and in 2009 they released this variant, which is of the Polish campaign, the Aus C, and this kit has 3 infantry support figures. I think it might have 4 infantry support figures, I'm not quite sure. Yeah, 4 figures. So one of them is probably a commander who sits on the hatch. You can use him or not use him, it's up to you. But this particular kit is of the updated model as well, with all the extra interior detail and the separate sprue and the length and link tracks, which is quite nice. And the model reviewers and professional builders really love this updated version, but they don't really like the original kit. For them, I think it's a little bit too basic, But I still think, having looked at the parts and the quality of the parts, I still think that it constitutes a benchmark for which to grade really good kits and not really so good kits from the original Panzer II from Tamiya. We'll leave you with this image now, which is a really nice picture of a Panzer II. I've got a feeling this might be in the Bovington Tank Museum, but don't quote me on that, but I think it is. And we'll just pan the camera down very quickly to the model in question. Try and get a little bit closer for you so you can see what's going on. There we go. And we'll just pull that picture there for you. This is the kit in question. There's some adverts on the side of the box, which is quite nice to see. 4 different armour kits. And we'll open the box up. I'll turn the lid upside down. So what I want to do is I just want to put all this stuff into here so we can have a look at the parts later. I want to go through the other stuff that I normally go through before we look at the main body of the kit. Now then, there's 2 distinct instruction leaflets and a paint and decal application guide. We'll have a look at that in a minute. We get, with most Tamiya kits, as people know who've bought Tamiya kits or they regularly buy Tamiya kits, you've got 2 sets of instructions. One is clearly in Japanese, can't understand a word of it. The other is in English, which is quite nice. It actually opens up, put it inside out here, I don't know why. It actually opens up into A4, sorry, it's made in A4 size, but it does close down into A5 to fit inside the box. And when you open the instruction leaflet fully up, it's like 2 A4 pieces top to top, which is quite nice. And on the front page, you've got some gunfill information there. Let's try and get this a little bit, try and get that shadow out of the way a little bit. But you've got some gumph there on the tank itself, you know, stats and history of the vehicle and stuff like that. And there's also operational information about the tank as well and where it served. The version I'm doing is actually the North Africa campaign version, which is quite nice. It's going to tie in with the Panzer I, which I'm doing in similar colours. And on the back of the page here, you've got the Africa Corps colour scheme and markings for the figurines, which is quite nice as well. There's even some lapel collar badges there, which are quite nice. They're not lapels, they go on the collars of the infantry uniforms. And they're quite clearly defined, which is good. And when you open up the instruction leaflet, you've basically got a plan where you've got, if you like, build instructions and special instructions on the left-hand side of the plans going all the way down, giving you specialist information. There's also a parts plan at the bottom there, which I'm always a fan of. People who know me, they know that. And at the bottom of the page, you've got a photograph of the model made up in diorama form with some other armour units and a Kubel wagon there and the figurines that come with the kit, which is quite nice. And then you've got the 4 stages of construction, which are very, very simple indeed. In section 1, you've got, sorry, there's actually 5 stages of construction, but as I said, they're very simple indeed. You've got the main chassis of the tank in section 1 with the rear bulkhead and the engine muffler, bits and bobs that fit on, and also the front drive sprocket axles, which fit from the inside of the hull through the aperture into the outside of the hull. And then in section 2 you build the drive sprocket road wheels and the idler sprocket, and they have a rubberized, a vulcanized rubber grommet which sits inside, which helps the parts helps to keep the parts onto the axles quite nicely. Apparently there's no need for any adhesive to glue these wheels in place, which is quite nice. And then in section 2 you finish off with the front track on the front of the tank there and fitting all those wheels into place. Section 3 you build the turret, quite easy. There's not that many parts to this kit. I think it will build up pretty quickly. The machine guns, it's a 20mm auto cannon there, and a 7.92mm machine gun that goes into the gun mount. Section 4 you're building the main tank body shell up with all the fittings, a spare road wheel there, the driver's hatch, there's a few other hatches here and there. There's a spade fitting into there and some panniers that go on the back, which are quite nice. And then in section 5 you finish off by fitting the turret into the body shell, fitting the body shell onto the chassis, and then you attach the tracks. And the tracks, they're an interesting thing because the tracks are a one-piece vulcanized rubber affair. And I think on a kit of this scale, I don't think it's really good enough to have a one-piece vulcanised rubber track now. But obviously in 1971, that was all they could come up with. But I don't like the method they've got fixing these down, and I think, to be honest with you, I think I might have to try and utilise this method, because what you've got to do is you've got to put those little pins, I'll explain to you when we get to the track parts, but you put those little pins through the aperture and the other end of the track, and then I think you use a heat source and a very small piece of metal to turn those pins into rivets and end up with a track that's in one piece. And then you just clip them over the wheels and the drive sprocket, which is I'll probably fit the drive sprocket first, then it should go over the idler sprocket at the end there. So the construction of the kit is actually pretty simple and straightforward. There's not an awful lot of complexity to it whatsoever. So I'm not expecting any problems there whatsoever. The decals, typical Tamiya decals. I don't think for 1 minute that you'd have had this quality of decals in the 71 release. These decals are really, really nice. They're a little bit proud, to be honest with you. There's a definite ridge to them, but the register on them is superb, and the clarity of the backing film there is really, really good. So I'm quite pleased with those. Not too many decals on that sheet either, which is quite good too. What we'll do, we'll just take the sprues out of the bags, and we'll go through the vulcanised rubber parts first. These are the grommets that fit inside the wheel assemblies, and these are the parts that are going to help the wheels stay on the axles, and the pins that hold the wheels in place. And I wouldn't call them soft rubber, they're quite rigid, but these two long ones at the end here, you don't need those at all. Those aren't used on this particular kit, and I think you've got 2 of these spare, because I'm pretty sure there's only 10 road wheels and 4 of the others, making 14 required. So that's those, and these are the one-piece vulcanised rubber tracks. Don't need to see both of them, we'll just show you one there. The actual quality of the tracks isn't actually that bad. I mean, you can see them quite clearly there, they're quite nicely moulded. They're not a bad track actually for vulcanised rubber. I don't think you're going to get much better than that. But I think the new release Panzer II with the length and link plastic tracks, I think they will be better. They'll look an awful lot better than that. Now then, you've got 4 what I'd call sand coloured sprues. This is the main chassis of the tank. It's all one piece, and as you can see, it obviously does for both different versions of the early kit release, because inside there you've got the battery compartment and the switch aperture there. The switch gear would fit in the middle, and obviously you'd switch the tank on and off, and it would roll on the floor, obviously. But it's quite well detailed. You know, it's not too bad. The actual detail on the side of those springs is quite nice. Not an awful lot of other detail in it, but this is the first thing that I saw when I opened the box before I bought this kit, and this is why I say that Tamiya are definitely a benchmark to show good quality and bad quality in a model. This is the upper body shell. It's quite a large piece of plastic, but with that in mind, the texture of the plastic and the quality of the moulding on it is actually very, very good. You've got nice detail in there. It's quite a nice piece of work. I quite like the look of this. Very nice. And the back of the tank there, the vents for the engine, they're all nice, crystal clear, crisply moulded parts. And the detail on the back of the back of the body shell there is really good too. Very impressed with that. Very, very impressed. Yeah, I like the look of that a lot. Now then, we'll go through these very quickly. The first sprue is some fittings and I think the figurine stands. Not too much to go on there, but the machine guns are quite nicely moulded. They look like Stens, don't they? Sten machine guns. Some German helmets there. Not your general run-of-the-mill German helmets, but they are. Definitely. They look the part. And there's some Some other weapons there. I'm not sure what type of weapons they are. There'll be a few people out there that will probably put in the comments what type of weapons they are. But they look nicely moulded. They're quite nice too. And some of these parts on the back of here, they're quite nicely crafted too. I quite like the look. Tamiya, I think Tamiya do quite a good job of, you know, making their parts look pretty good. The figurines. Quality of the figurines on these. I mean, I'm not an expert 35th scale figures, but I think these look pretty good. You know, there's quite a lot of detail going on. The faces, I think you could paint them up quite nice. There's a few of my subscribers out there I think that could do a really good job. Certainly a better job of them than probably I'll do. There's one particular subber that I've got in mind. I think my friend in Birmingham will have a real field day with those two guys. And those two guys there. These guys have posing arms, which is quite nice. So you can pose them in different positions for your diorama purposes and whatnot, which is nice. And also the machine gun. There's a tripod mount there, which and that's quite nice as well. I like that. Yeah, quite good. I like that. Then you've got the road wheels and the commander figure. The commander figure, obviously, he will sit in the cupola. And there's his trousers there, which is quite nice. And he's got opposable arms, which is good too. And then you got a little bit of detail to some of these wheels. That's the guy's stand for the figurine there. Some of these road wheels, they're quite good, aren't they? The actual quality of the moulding on them are very good. This is actually my first Tamiya kit in 35th scale armour that I've ever built. I've built a few aircraft before, but I've never built a Tamiya armour kit before. I'm looking forward to this. It looks quite impressive. To me it looks impressive. There's probably a lot of guys out there that have built other companies' kits like Dragon and Ateleri and a few other companies to mention that are probably better in detail and quality than this, but I'm quite impressed by this. I'm looking forward to this indeed. Those parts look very nice. I'm quite impressed with those. And then you've got the basically the turret detail and the mantle for the machine guns and the turret. I mean, you must agree the turret looks quite nice, doesn't it? The moulding on that is quite crisp. I think they do a pretty good job. You've got the plastic track there that goes across the front of the front plate to the glacis. The panniers, the actual machine guns, they're quite nice as well. I hope that's going to come into focus for you. It's not looking like it wants to, is it? There we go. Quality of the mouldings on these parts I'm really impressed with. Very impressed with that indeed. Looks really nice. And then you've got some other bits and bobs. That's the spade. Yep, very impressed with that. So that's the parts. That's pretty much a look at the inbox. Look at the kit as far as what the contents of the box is concerned. What I want to do now is I'll just leave you that image and I'll just want to go through the gump. There's a little bit of gump to go through and then we'll close this video down as quickly as possible. The inbox review is on the Tamiya Panzer II Ausf F and G with the 5 combat figures, which was the 1971 original release. The kit is moulded in 1/35th scale with a serial number of 35009/1200 and it's Military Miniature Series number 5. There are decals for 5 options. The first is for an Ausf F Red R6 of the 15th Panzer Division Afrika Korps 1943. The second is for an Ausf G 1418 Panzer Division Operation Barbarossa Eastern Front 1941. The third is an Ausf G from 115th, sorry, this is 115, 3rd Panzer Division Battle of Kursk Eastern Front 1943. The fourth is of an Ausf G, this is number 2, 21st Panzer Division Afrika Korps 1942. And the fifth is of an Ausf F 135 from the 6th Panzer Division Eastern Front 1942. So there are plenty of options there to go for. The dimensions of the kit are approximately 5 inches long by 2.75 inches wide by 1.75 inches high. There are in total 132 parts on 4 sand coloured plastic sprue and 22 parts on one black rubber sprue, totaling 154 parts in total. Options and costs. There are quite a number of options and costs, and they're quite interesting. And what I thought I'd start to do with my inbox reviews is I'd start to give you what I would consider recommendations and definite kits to avoid. In 144 scale, there are two models. One's from Fairy Kikaku of the 21st Panzer Division set. This is of a Panzer 1A, a Panzer 1B, a Panzer 2C, two Panzer 3Fs, a Panzer 4D and a Panzer 4. Now, you have all these tanks in the one box set from Fairy Kikaku, and I have seen a review of this kit, and they sort of like it for diorama purposes. It's quite detailed and they're quite comprehensive. Dragon also do a 144 scale kit in a twin tank pack from the 10th Panzer Corps set. This is a Panzer 2A and a Panzer 2E. Unfortunately, I haven't got any pricing details for either of these two kits. In 1/100th scale, this is one of the kits that the reviewers liked. The Panzer II is built by Svezia in 1/100th scale. These kits retail for about £5 to £7, and they're very, very highly recommended for diorama builders. 176 sees four kits. The Fujimi Panzer II, which is actually the Nitto Rebox kit, that retails for £10 to £12. There's a Matchbox Panzer II, which retails for £13 to £15. The reviewers did like that too. That was one of the favourites. Nitto's Panzer II retails for about £10, and Revell reboxed the Matchbox Panzer II, and that kit retails for about £7 to £10. In 72nd scale, you can get a recommended reviewed kit from Ace of the Panzer II. That kit retails for £10 to £14. AHM do a Panzer II rebox from the ESI kit. Again, I've got no details of pricing on that. Attack Hobby Kits build a Panzer II, which retails for about £16 to £20. Corporal Overby's Motor Pool produce a Panzer II. Again, I've got no details of pricing for that. The ESI Panzer II kit retails for about £10 to £12. First to Fight's Panzer II and Fly Hawk's Panzer II. No pricing on either of those two. But the Hasegawa Panzer II, which is a reboxed ESI kit, is available from £9 to £11. IBG build a Panzer II for £9 to £10. And Italieri also rebox the ESI Panzer II for £10 to £12. Revell build the ESI kit of the Panzer II for £10 to £14. And S Model of China, they build a Panzer II which comprises of two kits in one box, retailing for about £10 to £12. TP Models also produced a Panzer II, but again I've got no pricing on that whatsoever. In 48 scale, Bandai Fuman, which is a reboxed Bandai kit, and Gasoline build Panzer IIs, no pricing on either of those, but for £17 to £21 you can get a highly recommended by professional builders and reviewers of the Panzer II from Tamiya. I cannot stress this more. This particular kit from Tamiya in 48 scale is exceptional. In 1/35 scale, 5M Hobby build a Panzer II, again no pricing on that. Allen Hobby build a Panzer II for £18 to £22. It's mildly recommended. Alanga build the ICM kit of the Panzer II. Arc Models build the Allen kit of the Panzer II. Bronco build a Panzer II, and so do Cyber Hobby. They build a Panzer II, which is a reboxed Dragon kit. Now I've got no pricings for any of those models apart from Cromwell Models build a Panzer II. I've got no pricings for any of those, but the Cyber Hobby Panzer II, which is the Dragon kit, and also the Dragon Panzer II, those kits retail for about £35 to £55 and £45 to £55 respectively, and they are quite highly recommended as well by the professional modelers. ICM's Panzer II, Microscale Design do a Panzer II, which is a reboxed Allen kit. Marquee, Model List, and Marquee and Model List also rebuild the Allen Hobby kit. No pricings on any of those. And Platts reboxed the Dragon kit of the Panzer II, and again I've got no pricings on that. Now then, Tamiya Panzer II model, the early kit, retails for between £9 and £12, and the late kit retails between £10 and £15. The early kit is mildly recommended, but the late kit is highly recommended by professional builders. Tamiya motorised Panzer II, mildly recommended. This kit can go for anything between £10 and £40 depending on the quality and age of the kit and how greedy the guy is who's trying to sell it. In 1/24 scale, there's a company called Asuka Model. They build the Tasca kit of the Panzer II, and that kit, I haven't got any details of sales, but it's probably in the region of about 60 to 70 quid. And the Tasca original model of the Panzer II retails for 70 to 80 pound. And again, the professional modelers and reviewers, they love that kit too. The Panzer II kit is one that's quite well sought after. 1/15 scale, Verlinden Productions build a Panzer II, no pricings available on that. And in 1/6 scale, this is probably the most highly recommended by pro builders and modelers alike. Dragon do a Panzer II in this scale, and it's absolutely superb, but its price tag is also quite high at £250. Conclusions. Now then, this will be my first Tamiya 1/35 scale tank, and I must say I can see why Tamiya became the benchmark for model companies when they came in on the scene. Bearing in mind that this kit was moulded as early as 1971, it is still a reasonable option. The detail and texture of the plastic is excellent, and the figures look really nice with arms that you can pose. The tracks are of the rubber one-piece type, which is probably the only thing that lets this kit down, but they do look pretty much okay. The early version was available in a motorised boxing, and this kit is getting rare now. Although not too expensive and easy to acquire, I would thoroughly recommend this kit to anyone of any level, as it doesn't look too challenging a build, and I'm really looking forward to adding this kit to my Panzer project. For those more discerning a modeller, I would go for the late version Tamiya kits, and the 48 scale Tamiya kit is really good. Also worthy of note is the excellent Tasca kit in 1/24 and the Dragon model in 1/6 scale. That's this model inbox review over and done with. I hope this video has been of some use. If you've got any questions or comments, please add them in the comment slip. And I must stress also that I've had quite a number of new subscribers over the last, I would say, 2 weeks, and I really appreciate the new subscriptions, and I hope that you're enjoying the content that I'm putting up. I'll hope to see you for the next one. Thanks for joining me, and I'll see you for the next one. Thank you. Bye-bye.